Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays. Another special episode because Blue couldn't make it yet again. We've got someone you might know, maybe a little, Cyphus.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Good
awesome.
to have you on my show,
That's
where
right.
I am the host, and if there's any power struggle, I will stab you in the neck with a letter opener.
Understood.
And we have Fafnir here with us as well.
Hello. Thanks for having me as well.
It's great to have you on, dude. We've wanted to have you on for a while because you really embody the good nature of a tryhard, so it's good to have you on. We just played 8-12.
Yeah, we gotta have Joe on to complete the .p Tryhard team on here.
Pretty much, we'll have him on some other time when we can talk about supports or something easy in Dota.
Isn't that what I'm here to talk about? Is something easy in Dota?
Well, it's kind of what we're going to go over today, I think. I think we have a lot of the team here, so I had some things bouncing around in my head that I wanted to talk about on a higher level. And that's kind of letting things go in the communication process. Not necessarily... I guess a big part of it is not getting bitter, because you play so much Dota that after a while, and I've been noticing this a ton in solo queue, you can have one bad thought or one bad bit of communication kind of roll and just take the whole game away. So I kind of wanted to get that concept talked about from different areas of the game. I mean, Faf, you're a really accomplished mid player and off laner and, hard carry. So, I mean, you can kind of talk about that from different areas. And Cyphus, you're, of course, a pretty good support. So I feel like we kind of have all the bases covered to have those communication discussions from a more broad perspective that we've had earlier on the show. So, I don't know. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
it sounds great. I mean, especially since we just played a super late game, and that's when communication is the most important and also probably the hardest.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It feels like as you go on, it's easy to kind of make calls early on in the game because there's less to be disputed. And I mean, arguably, you play a lot more games that are 30 minutes or so than you do the super late games. So you're just naturally less skilled in those long games.
I think positioning, too. I mean, the biggest thing I felt like in that last game, we were dealing with an Ember Spirit with, Boots of Travel. He was everywhere on the map, and split-second coordination was required. Like in the heat of the moment, like split-second coordination was required to determine how to deal with what he was doing. Who was going to go where, or who was going to go up there to push that lane back out. What the other four were going to be doing, what lane we had to be in at that exact moment. There was a lot of high pressure there in a game that, admittedly, I think we should have lost.
It almost becomes like a timed chess or something when you start to get all the lanes pushed out to your base, and you've already maybe lost a lane of racks like we did in that last game. It was really stressful because any wrong move meant we would probably lose that game, and in a lot of ways we probably would have lost that game had things gone better for the other team.
Well, and I mean, it probably bears explaining that the big, or at least this definitely played a factor in us winning. Kairai, unfortunately, had to bail. We were playing the .p Devils, and he had to bail like right at the end of that match due to some extraneous circumstances.
So. Talk about Deus Ex Machina, though. It was like, as they were marching towards our gates, it was like, shit, boys, we can't hold him. And then he just like goes lifeless and limp, and their main soldier dies. Achilles dies in front of us. Well, it's like, all right.
It was we who paused, and then they who unpaused, and we were like, wait, you guys realize you just lost your playmaker. And they're like, yeah, we can't do anything about it.
To provide further context, basically he told them that he was going to have to go. And so they went all in mid because you can't buy back when somebody DCs. So if we knew that, we could just sit there and defend our 1 racks, and then like we have 10 lives to their 9, and he had 40k of their net worth. I just looked that up. So without being able to buy back or buy new items, like we could have just played the waiting game and eventually won. Because if we kill him once, then we just run at them mid. And end the game, and he's dead for 2 minutes then, because death timers are 2 minutes when you're level 25 that late. So they kind of just had to go all in, and it did not work out because 4 players playing 5 and the frantic nature of it. But yeah, We won.
We won. It felt sleazy. Both Wazoo and I even had a moment where we were like, God, it almost feels like we felt bad enough that maybe we should give them a win. But
I don't think they'd take it for one, and for two, it kind of goes against the whole spirit of the thing, I imagine. But
well, and not only that, like they hadn't won for sure. It wasn't like they were going to kill their throne, and he was the only one left alive, and he DC'd or something. Like it was, they needed to win a team fight, and they had an advantage in the team fight just by the nature of the lineups. Which, to clarify, our hard carry was a Lycan who kind of falls off once you hit 40 minutes mark. And I had a Zeus mid who also, he doesn't fall off, but he can't solo carry. And then they had an Ember Spirit and a Wind, both who go really well late game. And they had a Puck off lane who scales about as well as the Zeus does. Like, he has a lot of control and everything. He provides what you need playmaking-wise. So they just had a draft advantage for super late. So we really felt like we had missed our window to win. We were about to take 2 racks, and they made some good plays on buybacks, and we thought we'd lost that game, but...
Ember is just such a rough hero to have to play in the late game too. We were kind of like a 5-man team scenario, so anywhere we went, he was the other place farming. Yeah. He went Boots of Travel first, which is exactly. We talked Boots of Travel first early on in this show on Ember, and I mean we saw it working very, very well for him. I mean, he had like 2 Daedaluses, a Battle Fury, and like he was just stacked, and like any sleight of fist or anything just wrecked people. So I don't know. The communication breakdown is interesting, though, in such a scenario, because there are so many possible moves, and I feel like a player like me, anyway, I get really uneasy doing nothing. Like, I start farming something, in my position, and then, like, I farm one camp, and then I farm the next camp closest to it, and then I farm the next camp closest to that, and then pretty soon I'm, like, deep in our jungle, and I, like, look around, and, like, there's a trail of, like, dead creep bones behind me, and then I get jumped and killed, and it's just like, fuck, what am I supposed to do in this downtime? I mean, I don't feel like I can, like, sit and just do nothing. And so, like, what do you guys feel towards that, like, lull? Like, what do you do? And how do you communicate that to your team? Just sit still. I mean, it's a hard thing to communicate.
Well,
go ahead, Faf.
I was just going to say, in that case, you're doing the right thing. You had to keep up. You had to get a next item. You have to get a next buyback. You had to do that. And you're going to get picked off against that sort of team. Like, I guess the key is, like, you got to watch the map, and if you don't see them, like, maybe call out for Zeus Ult or think, oh, crap, I need to get out. The other approach you can do is... if you don't have an escapable hero like Ember, is you could have like your whole team kind of sit behind you. Like the 4 of us could have been hovering over it, watching you kill those creeps, like the freaking helicopter team. Because there were a couple times where they tried to jump us in that game where they thought somebody was solo and they weren't. And then, and vice versa. And then, all of a sudden it's a 2-for-0 or a 2-for-1. And then, the other team takes an objective off that. So there's kind of, I think in our situation, we might have needed to, sit behind you more, but it's just really tough because we're trying to de-push all the lanes, and they had a more mobile team because of the Ember. So,
and we probably should have grouped up like 5 minutes earlier than we ended up doing.
Yeah,
we definitely split. Like there was a fight really early on where Joe, Blue, and I all got killed by they had 4 down in the bot lane. And they had come down there to try to take advantage of Blue and push that bot tower. And Joe and I had just TP'd in. And that fight very nearly was won. But Faf was farming mid, and you were taking the Roche. And like I almost think had we 5-manned right there, I mean we nearly killed all 4 of them, just the 3 of us.
It's funny that team learned so well because it's like the first game we took racks, all of them, we had megas by like 25 minutes or something, and in that second game they kind of said, well, how do we mitigate that exactly, and they just picked a bunch of heroes that made it really, really hard for us to take the high ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had our window to win, and we screwed up a lot of things. Like, so we traded 3 for the Aegis. Like, I think you guys might have gotten 1 kill there, and they took the bot tower. But for an Aegis, that's okay. Like, we had an Aegis on Lycan. And then I think Wazoo just pushed tops. Like, he split off and went top kind of solo while we were trying to push the mid tower, and he got killed twice. Like, better communication. That's a communication breakdown. Like, there's lots of little things like that. The key is I don't think we ever got stressed and started yelling at each other. And even if we lost the game, I don't think we would have been too upset because I think think we all recognized we had a plan. We didn't execute it, and no one person was to blame. Because like when Wazoo calls Roche and I'm sitting mid with no TP, like you guys shouldn't have taken that fight, even if it looked really juicy and you almost killed them all. Like we're not coming because I don't have a TP, so I'd have to walk there, and that's not very quick. And Wazoo is at like 50% health because he's trying to kill that Roche. So it's kind of one of those things where we could have done a lot of things better, and I think we could have drafted better. I think picking Lycan that early is a thing of the past with this patch.
Oh yeah, I agree. Because they didn't necessarily even have to draft specifically against the Lycan. They just picked up good things to corner that pick out, kind of edge it out a little bit, and they were infinitely stronger for it. And he's not by any stretch of the imagination someone who can keep up in the late game with even the least hard carries in the game. It feels like he's nothing compared to like a Wind Ranger, and she's no like softy when it comes to hard carrying, but she's not like the hardest carry in the game or anything. But the Lycan just gets wrecked by any type of item build, it feels like, with some of those heroes. And so, I don't know. For me, in that game, I felt completely powerless after like the 30-minute mark. And so, what I do when I feel powerless in the game, and I just try to out-farm it, And they had such a good lockdown on the map that resulted in pickoffs, which resulted, like, I didn't die much up to the 30-minute. I was like, I think I was like 7-3 or 7-4, but like in that game I died like 10 times or something towards the end because I didn't feel like I had a place in that game past the mid game point.
Yeah, no, and Ursinity even said it, like at a certain point you became kind of irrelevant because I needed to burst somebody down or the supports had to lock somebody or Mista on the Clockwork. We had a Wyvern, a Disruptor, and a Clockwork. If one of them isolated it, then the big dog could go eat. But you couldn't do anything on your own. Even with the Abyssal, you couldn't do it on your own. So, lesson learned. They're a really good team. We crushed them the first game with a good draft and good execution. And the second game, I think I just had an idea with Lycan and it didn't work out. Especially since I did not play the best Zeus. I could have definitely. I think we needed a greedier mid. Because there was a lot of farm on the map that I was not grabbing. I mean, even though you kept up with the Ember, like I could have been flash farming a lot more, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't your typical mid. It wasn't someone that could just kind of scoop all that farm into a sack. I mean, Chain Lightning's good and all, but it's not super efficient compared to a bunch of other things, that you're used to playing with. The Power Shot and the Wind Ranger, the Queen of Pain Scream, all that stuff. I mean, it's just stuff that you become reliant on. I feel like not just you personally, but heroes people that play those heroes kind of mid. It's just like it becomes your fallback, and that's definitely me with Lycan. Is I feel like so many of my games end by that 35-minute point. We're just taking racks, or we have such a sizable advantage that when it doesn't happen, I'm just immediately put on the back foot, even if we're not there statistically. I'm on the back foot because I haven't played a lot of games from that point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Your Wyvern was really strong too, though, Cyphus. I feel like that's a strong hero.
I got laughed at when I Winter's Cursed that creep, but
he rounded it away. You were clicking on his model, and then the model was not there. That happens because you were a half second away from killing him with no buyback. I think at that point. Yeah. So it happens.
Yeah, it was painful. It was the worst feeling in the world to see my beautiful ult wasted on that damn dire creep. Or that damn radiant creep.
So many ults of yours, it felt like you were like flying, like doo, just like slowly drifting towards the target. And then like it would be a good ult when you would click it, and then you'd get there and you'd like barely tap it, and then they'd die instantaneously. It's like, okay.
I think that was a game instead of I told you to go Hex. Like, this isn't bad, but like I think this is the game where you and Disruptor both needed Blink, so you could just Blink Curse, Blink Ult.
I almost bought a Blink Dagger because I was sitting on like 4,500 gold, and the debate in my mind was, do I go for a Blink here? Because I had a Force Staff, and I felt like that helped a little bit with catching up, to get a Winter's Curse, and have the versatility with getting people out of situations. But then I almost went the Blink. I almost picked up the Blink additionally. Now I kind of wish I would have.
Yeah, well, it's just a lesson learned. And the other thing you could have done, and I don't know if you made those plays, but like you can also Glimmer Cape in. Like, And that's something that you could have caught maybe with him there. But that's tough. I don't use Glimmer enough to do that. But, things have been done. But I think we communicated well, and that played through. Meanwhile, like, just to bring up, you talk about the breakdown. I was playing a pub game, and we ended up losing this game. But part of it was we came back from a rough start for our mid, and we had a window to win. And our offlaner just kept talking shit to the mid Shadow Fiend, like wouldn't stop. And this Shadow Fiend was terrible. Like I kind of don't blame him, but also like it doesn't help, and he just wouldn't stop. I ended up muting him, even though like he played well and tried to play with the team. He just wouldn't stop.
I feel like it's just kind of control freak issues in a way. Like you almost feel like you want to be playing that hero so bad or something, or you feel like you could do such a better job that you want to just spend the entire time telling that person. And it just starts as like a slow roll. And so I don't know. That's something I've been seeing a lot in games lately. And that's that like the mute button. I mean, it's ever good. I mean, it's the best item in the game or something. But
I have such a hard time muting people. I almost never do it. Almost never.
You'll just listen to someone spew their bullshit.
And I know I know it's a large part of. I don't know if it's a large part of why I feel negative towards the random folk that I meet out there in pubs, but I do have a seething negativity about about the people I've interacted with of late. The good ones are few and far between, but I have this problem where like I can't help but think, this is a fucking team game, and even though this guy is the number one asshole I've met in recent memory, if he tells me he's gonna go if he's gonna push top, and he's got 2 or 3 other people with him, I wanna hear it. I want to hear any level of communication he's willing to grant me. And I don't know, maybe the juice just ain't worth the squeeze more often than not.
You're willing to put your negative feelings towards the person individually on the wayside so you can try to win the game.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people that are the exact opposite. That they not just with muting, maybe they won't mute you, but they will continue to try to make you frustrated in a way. Like even if you're on their team. I don't know. And that's something I've seen in that's not just a Dota thing by any means. That's every game I've ever played. It's an interesting experience, Dota. It's an interesting social dynamic because you have so many people that should be wanting to do the same thing, but at the same time, everybody wants to be the guy in Dota. Everybody wants to be the guy on the scoreboard, it feels like in pubs. And so when they're not, or you are, or they feel that they should be, they almost take that out on you on some passive aggressive level before they're ever aggressive about it. And some people are just blatantly aggressive. It's interesting because you see so many people that want the core position. And then you see so many people that don't want to play support, but they still think someone should do it.
Yeah.
They say they think someone should do it.
Someone that's not me. I don't know. I have experimented with that attitude in my solo queue, and I made the proclamation yesterday that I'm going to play 10 straight solo queue games of nothing but support. That's my goal.
It's not so bad, honestly. I've been doing it a lot. I just play kind of what my team needs. I try to stay away from the off lane because it's just a position I'm not super familiar with. But in terms of safe lane, I can usually grab the 5 position, or if I can't get that, I can move to the jungle with something, or I can play the 1 or something, And so maybe I'm not the guy every game, and it's just this weird delay of gratification that people aren't familiar with, I guess. And that's if you think that you should get any one position every single game, you're fucking kidding yourself.
Yeah.
Solo queue, I mean, the reason that people say that is your true determiner of skill is because it's a jack of all trades MMR. You're not in a party environment where you can kind of edge out what position you're going to be able to play. It's something that's kind of up in the air, and you have to be able to accommodate that with other people. And so I guess I find it interesting that I'm just having such a hard time finding people with an attitude of accommodation. And are you guys experiencing the same things at your respective skill levels?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I literally lost a game because the guy last pick randomed, and Medusa he was trying to play it, but we needed another support or maybe an aggro off lane. But he just died 8 times, and then at the end of the game he said, "Well, I only play Invoker." And then I looked at his Dota buff. He really only plays Invoker. It's 800 Invoker games and 200 Pudge, and he's not flexible at all. And he didn't communicate that. And we had another guy picked Invoker, And the other Invoker was good, and maybe this other guy was good. I mean, he plays him enough. He's at 3.5 KMMR roughly, but that just kind of ruined the game. I don't know. Like, I try to focus on, if I first pick a hero, I try to first pick a strong core or a strong support. A lot of Doom recently, just because I can get the off lane, or I can go jungle, or I can work around the team. And then support, like, I don't know. I too enjoy making the plays, but I always try to remember, like, the 1 in 20 support games. I had one recently. I got an ultra kill just because a team fight happened and I lived at the end, and I got all the killing blows randomly on silencer, kind of. I mean, I played it well, but, ultra kills don't happen even if you play it well usually.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had a Midas, and then basically I'm a core because I had a Midas at 12 minutes on a support silencer. So I try to hold on to those games, and then you go 1 in 11 and you lose a slow 1 hour game, and then you die a little inside.
It's interesting because I feel like that is one way, even though like definitely hero picks and stuff bleed in from the pro meta, and you see that happen a lot. What I also see bleed in a ton is the mentality, in a way. The mentality of I'm hot shit, I'm RTZ, I'm Eternal Envy, or whatever, and I should always get this position because I'm better than anyone at my skill level, which just isn't true. I mean, anybody at the 34, 3500 skill level, they're going to be probably as good. They're probably going to have the farming mechanics that anyone else is going to have. Like, I don't have any delusions that I'm better than anybody else when it comes to farming. I think that the reason you're at that level is because you've been able to grasp up to that point pretty much just the basics of the game well. And not even super well, like maybe average well, and just being able to understand that, like, I mean, you look at a lot of people in 82L at our teams, and I think what separates a lot of the teams in 82L is there's some teams that can take huge advantage of that farm time that's down, and if they're left alone, they can just hurry and farm up a big item, and then there's some people that can't, and that is kind of the separator there within that skill bracket, and that's like 0 MMR to 3K.
Well, and if you want to
4K,
if you want to be one of those guys who only plays one position, I feel like you only have two options. You either play in a league like AD2L with a team where you have a designated position, or you've got to get a 5-stack that understands what you're going to do
and accommodates you.
Yeah,
I think anything else is just really, really silly.
Well, and even in party queue, I mean, it's hard. How often do we, have we played with a 3-stack in a party queue, and you don't always get to run what you want? I mean, we've you and Roland and I the other night had a game. It was like a week and a half ago, but we got paired up with a 2-stack who both wanted to play support.
Yeah.
When our thought was we were going to try lane in the safe lane, and then Roland and I both ended up playing cores. Like, you can't assume you're going to get what you want.
And often you will not get what you want. You might even get what you really, really don't want.
Well, and not even that, but like, you can't even, it's a game where, hell, just because you want to play a hero doesn't mean you should. I mean, more often than not, based off of what's picked and what's not picked, and I don't know. It's mind-boggling to see, and I know everybody says it's bad at all levels. That's the first thing all you assholes up in 3K and 4K tell me. Is, oh no, it's like that at every level. I promise it's worse at 1K. I promise it's worse.
Yeah, I'm sure hero picks are going to be, kind of as a general rule of thumb, a little more scawampus.
I just don't believe you. I played a bunch of solo queue past weekend, and it's not. It's just as bad. I mean, people do less dumb things with those heroes at 3.5, but they still do dumb things, and they're still toxic. We had to talk a guy out of feeding mid because somebody picked Alchemist to be the hard carry. Alchemist played pretty well. He did some dumb stuff. We lost the game, but we literally spent 5 minutes during the pick phase talking him out of feeding mid. He's like, I've lost 500 MMR. We're like, well, don't feed mid. You're just going to lose 25 more for sure. Like, let's try it. Like, pick a support or pick a jungler. We're like, we're fine with junglers. We'll support you. We're just trying to talk him down from that ledge. And we did. But, we still lost, so I'm sure he, will not be talked down from that ledge again, maybe.
Man.
Which I feel bad for, the general populace. 2 of the games I lost, I had the same mid. Got crushed both times.
Nothing so desperate as a Dota 2 player on a losing streak.
Yeah, yep.
But what the hell is with that, tanking your MMR to hell? I see it a lot with Alki players in this meta so far. It's like he's still a niche hero in ways. I mean, he's good, sure, he's better, but at the same time, like, he's not an every pick, it feels like, especially not at lower skill levels that can't really take advantage of all, like, the farm. So it feels like all these guys that, like, pick it every game, like, it's like, finally, it's an every game pick again. Like, they're in denial, you know? And I see so many games lost with Alkies that just can't get their fucking hero off the ground, and it's just...
But
it's never them.
Does it make you want to feed mid?
Oh, man. Like,
is it that bad?
Well, I mean, I don't know. He's just a hero that, like, he kind of functions weirdly, and he's hard to coordinate with your team. But, you know, I lost to an Alchemid who just got out of control, and we couldn't contain him because, you know, and I think I probably won 6 out of 10 opponent games because he wins about 40% of the games. But when it works, it's super fun to do because you're like Naga, except you're Naga 10 minutes earlier. So, and the pros have done it enough. So it's good. Dota's a copycat video game. So you just copy what you do, and it's super fun to be the guy and just hear the goal just ching 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 in.
Oh, that's
the
damn
reinforcement
sound.
right there. Yeah,
that's a positive reinforcement. That.
But how many other times do you hear the unstable concoction blow up in your face? You know, like.
Oh man, you're a position 1 player. You know, you just whatever.
Yeah.
I BKB'd when I was doing a creep wave. That's fine. I just got to farm more creep camps. Now I need another item.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been having some seething negativity towards everybody, and it's part of why I decided to just play support. It's I don't know. I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. You know, Ursi's always talking about how if you can keep the idiots alive, then your idiots are going to be better than their idiots. You know, they're going to be better farmed. They're not going to have as many deaths, reducing that. And the proof was in the pudding because I played a Winter Wyvern game immediately after I like came to kind of this conscious decision that I was going to do it, and I had a miserable Spectre, and you know, again at 1K, anytime there are a few heroes, and anytime you see somebody pick them, it's like, oh great, this is going to be a bad game, and Spectre's one of those heroes. And the guy got a 35-minute Radiance, but I kept him alive to get it with all of his miserable auto attack clicking for last hits on the creeps.
1 in every 10 creep kills or something.
Yeah. It took him 35 minutes to get the Radiance, but he didn't die anytime somebody came down to gank him. We were able to turn some ganks because I was able to, you know, aggressively hurt the other team. And I realized, you know, the zoning ability that I've developed playing with you guys, you know, in AD2L and in party ranked situations. I'm zoning far better offlaners than I'm coming up against, you know, in that 1K territory that I'm trying to dig my way out of. And I just zoned the fuck out of everybody that was in that lane. And I don't know, it made him just, the realization was, oh yeah, I can have a way bigger impact as a support at these levels. By doing that.
I don't think you realize that, and I think that's a big part of the psychology behind not picking a support, is you just feel like it's not impactful. But it's greatly impactful, and that's why you see some of the best heroes, or I keep saying that, some of the best players in the game, you know, such as Puppy and stuff, playing those high-impact supports. I mean, it's something that as you get better, you start to see how much of an effect you can really have on the game. It's kind of subtle at first. I mean, warding and stuff like that, it's very subtle. Yeah. It doesn't transition to thousands of gold or whatever. You know, you don't get to see that.
Your reward is not gold.
Yeah.
I can tell you that from
yeah.
1,000 games worth of experience. Your reward is not gold. But you do, I do, there is a stipulation there. And it is that if you are going to support, you can't just pick any support. You have to pick supports that, and this is Ursi again, speaking from the book of Ursi, verse 10, you know, in chapter book 11. You've got to pick either a defensive support. Thou shalt only pick defensive supports, or those who scale well in the late game. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on a run of Lena. I'm going to go on a run of Silencer, run of Wyvern, run of Dazzle. That's what I'm going to do in solo.
And as Faf said, Silencer and Lena and heroes like that, they can kind of, if a fight really does go your way, you've all of a sudden upgraded into like a status like of a core, you know? You can start to have more game impact in the sense that you're a core than game impact as if you're just throwing words up. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with that gray area, and I think that's why it's a game that so many of us love. is because it's a shifting thing. It's never static. So yeah, that's very interesting. I think you'll find a lot of success with that, to be honest.
I
in
hope
terms
so.
of digging
I'm
out
going
of
to
the
do 10
trench.
games straight, and I'll come back and let you know.
It's still frustrating as fuck, though. I mean, no matter what you do, there's no escaping that.
I have no doubt, but I think it will soften the blow to know that I've made this proclamation, that I'm just going to do 10 games and see how it goes.
How do you communicate with your team as a support at that level? Like,
Well, I mean, the one thing I'd stress to you is don't get disheartened if it's 10 games, because you're going to go on losing streaks. Like, winning 75% of your... I think Roland was winning like 65, 70% of his games when he climbed 500. That's still a lot of games to climb. Yeah, so...
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I recognize that. It has been nice to see. I don't know. I've seen my win rate like skyrocket since I started playing solo more frequently. Just because I think like for the last month I'm at like a 67% win rate. In the last 3 months I'm at like 58 or 59%. So I'm seeing some progress there. I know it's going to be miserable. I know that means for every 10 games, or for every 5 games I gain MMR, I'm going to lose 2 games worth. But that's all right.
The pulse is definitely different, not just in the whole sense of like you can't pick what you want, but I feel like the attitudes are just different going into it. If just by the definition of, like you kind of want to be seclusionary when you're playing a solo type environment. And it's weird because solo itself isn't even a solo environment anymore. It's not true solo. I mean, you still have parties in there often. You're often matched up with a pair or whatever, I've noticed lately. So you also have that sense of like kind of feeling ganged up on, which is weird because there's 3 single people and 2 solitary, or 2 grouped up people. And it feels like sometimes you can get such a loudmouth group of 2 that they feel like they can do no wrong, And so if you're doing all this like grunt work, like warding and everything, and you're just getting constant lip, it makes you want to go inside your shell and not even do that shit. Yeah. It's such psychologically, like, I don't know. I could talk about solo queue forever because it's just such an interesting experience, like what they've set up.
Well, don't get me wrong, like those are terrible situations. More often than not, what I see in the 1K realm is 2 guys that they're willing to work together, but not with the rest of the team. It's the 2 of them everywhere on the map. Wherever one of them goes, the other is following. And the rest of you are trying desperately to, get them to go into a particular lane with you, or let you accommodate or accompany them in whatever lane they happen to be in, to try to grab an objective. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of soccer ball chasing. There's a lot of, I'm in this to be up on the scoreboard, win or lose. If I get 10 kills and have 3 deaths, I feel like I won at the end of the match.
Everybody wants to be the guy, man. Yeah. I'm telling you. Everybody wants to be the guy. But it feels like when people aren't that way, like you're explaining, if you kind of, I don't know, live in more of an altruistic way of Dota, like just kind of give yourself to the game. And people that really want to win a game, I mean, they're not so concerned with that shit all the time. I mean, you can carry a game or whatever, but you also know that you don't carry a game or just start fighting at like minute 10. You know? You don't like ignore wards, you don't ignore all that stuff. So at this level, it's almost like a strange hero brawler experience more so than like strategic depth.
Yeah, there's not an appreciation for objective based gaming. It's that first person shooter mentality. I don't know. That's where it's most alive and well, I feel like, is at the 1K level.
I'm sure you see it depending on whoever it is, though. I mean, it's just you see it even at 3.5K with people who just...
Well, I'm sure like Faf's Invoker, right? I mean, you think that guy picks Invoker and Pudge for 1,000 games, because he wants to do anything other than just get 6 hooks and land 6 sunstrikes. What's the motivation there?
Yeah, I mean, that's all he wants to do. And he played terrible, but he also tried. Like, he was communicative. He tried. He was just on a Medusa who went off lane and had no idea what to do in that sort of situation or to recover, because it just wasn't in his experience. So, I mean, I don't know. I think solo queue is its own beast, but Yeah, I mean that's all you can do, and just if like I appreciate Cyphus's mentality of I will suffer the indignities, but eventually you just have to make the judgment call. Am I going to be so mad and am I going to be on tilt? So do I mute him, or can I just deal with his crap just because I want to see his ping if he's pinging out something I need to know?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. There is that whole argument of if that guy frustrates me, does that, how many last hits do I miss because of what's going on chemically in my brain responding to this guy? What impact is he really having on it? And I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm on the hypothetical side of there's a net gain to still having communication with most players. Obviously, there are some levels of toxicity that just can't be tolerated.
Yeah, but you're not a hothead. Like let's be real. You get mad sometimes, but like other than about your car, maybe I've never heard you like roaring mad.
Sure.
Like
sure.
me or Wazoo or Roland, like we're not gonna react as well. We might argue with them. We'll try to argue with them because we're right. And that's, you're typing, you might get ganked. Like, or you're sitting there, like, making puns or just yelling at them, you're going to miss the last hit. So it's your own personality you really have to judge. Ursay climbed to 4K by just muting everyone and just playing his support, doing his thing on Jakiro. It worked for him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I didn't know he climbed with support, actually, but that does make sense.
Well, that's his suggestion is, that's how you climb. If you want to climb, play support.
Yeah, when I first met him in an in-house, he was playing Jakiro, and he completely wrecked. And he was just like, yeah, I'm primarily a support player, this or that. And then I think we just, in an in-house, put him on Slark because we're like, okay, somebody needs to carry. And it was like, I don't know, somebody said, hey, you can do it. Or I said, you can do it. Because I knew he was a higher level player, and I suggested him. And he went in Slark and then murdered everyone. It was like 22-1 or something stupid. It was like, okay, you're not supporting anymore if you're on our team. And thus began the decline. Ursay started playing a lot more mids and everything, which was good. I mean, he broadened his horizons. I mean, he could always play them. Like, he played a ton of Invoker all the time. But, he kind of stretched his wings out and, got comfortable with all the positions, which he is because he's a very well-rounded player, unlike Mr. Invoker Pudge.
Yeah. I can't imagine that. I don't know. What are the heroes that you guys have spammed the most?
I have spammed a crap ton of Doom in both solo and party ranked because he's really strong. I actually enjoy playing with him. I got into him in some early .p in-houses as off lane. So I've been spamming him. And then when I've been doing support, I've been picking Silencer because I had 2 really good Silencer games and 1 really bad one. And Silencer's one of my favorite heroes. And he can support core, which is kind of more my speed.
Yeah. I play a ton of Lycan. Over 200 games on him now. I think I have like a 67 or something % win rate. Maybe it's lesser now. Maybe around 64 or something. But pretty good. I pick him when I should. I don't just really mash him all the time. But I feel like he is one of those heroes that benefits a solo queue type environment because you can run him anywhere. I mean, you typically won't be able to get mid or something in a solo queue game, but if people shove it out and they are all mad at your pick, you just concede and you're like, I'll take jungle. I'll take offlane. Whatever. I mean, you can make him work wherever, even if all other lanes are taken by other cores.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of just build Necrobook and push out wherever your team isn't, And so you get to the point where you are just pushing other places around the map, and then you try to take an early high ground and end the game as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That's kind of my...
Well, and yeah, you have that push potential while the kids are chasing the soccer ball around the field.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because they're all fighting and clashing constantly, and they'll yell at you still, but then you just mute and you just keep doing your thing because it's so interesting to me, like the hindsight in some players, because they'll take a terrible fight and then they'll lose because it's a terrible fight, and then they'll ping you and be like, "Where the fuck were you?" And it's like, how was I supposed to know you're going to get in a fight in their fucking jungle after taking...
Bitch, I'm taking a tier 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it translates better that way because you're taking objectives while they're fighting.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you're doing it together, guys. Yeah. But you're not, know. And you
to the other team, it's like, these guys are so goddamn well coordinated.
Yeah.
They just we're killing those guys, but that fucking Lycan's just pushing up that top lane.
Yeah. It's almost like you're doing it as a team.
Almost.
but
Well,
you're
and
not.
yeah, and honestly, like I see that in how you played the like in that game. Like, there were some calls and miscoordinated, like solo pushing that with the Aegis. Like, a more or less coordinated team might not be like, we've got to save that tier 2 and kill him. They might be farming away. So you took a little risk, and I'm not trying to criticize you. I'm just thinking like the things that will probably work in a solo queue game in our AD2L game got punished.
Exactly.
Or when Mista and them went back and caught the Ember. I think Mista and Cyphus, or Mista and maybe it was Joe. I can't remember who TP'd out. When that call was made, you probably had a few seconds where you could have BKB TP'd out, and you could have gotten out, and you would have lived. But it's one of those things where, like, because in a solo game, you've got Rosh at half health. You never get out. So, your instincts are all wrong. You're like, I got to finish the Rosh, when in reality, it's like, in high-level Dota, sometimes you just got to bail or you can't do things. Like,
and that's
Lycan's definitely a pub game, because once you have that Necro, you just take racks. You'll take racks solo, because they'll be fighting randomly.
Yeah, it's all just School of Hard Knocks kind of with him. It's not something that translates well to 5v5, like, coordinated teams, because they know where you are, or they keep tabs on Rosh timings and all that stuff. And so they'll know that you have 5 seconds on your BKB. They'll know your item timings, and they'll know what you're building. In pub, like, solo games, it's just not the case. Like, they either don't know, or they don't care, or they're too busy fucking fighting with the other idiots in the jungle to give a shit.
Look at how different those two games we played against the Devils were. I mean, game 1, you were on Gyro, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you would arguably you would have thought we would have finished the way, or the game would have proceeded the way that it did in game 1 and game 2, and perhaps vice versa,
I just don't think they knew what to do to a coordinated 5-man lineup. And I think a lot of teams don't. And so that's what's so perplexing to me about solo games. It's like, with some fighting lineups, you can just straight go 5-man push towers. And that is a good strategy up until like 20, 30 minutes for like 3K level play or before. If you just win or take a pick or two and just go push an objective, it's a victory, and then you come back. The problem is, of course, is that a lot of people don't know when to stop pushing. And so you'll take a team fight, and you'll just like, we can win the game, and you just like push all the way until you all die.
Yeah, well, there's too much greed, and there's too much overconfidence.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a level of, or at least I feel this way in my pubs, the trash tier. That's where I'm living. I think there's like a desire to continue going while like you don't want the roll to stop. The roll can't stop because you got to make hay while the sun's shining. Your team is ready to go, obviously, right now. So let's just keep pushing while we're still doing this, while things are actually working for us, and not like a consideration of, well, all right, we did well, we took an objective, let's go back and farm and prep for the next objective. There's not that. There's not that sense.
There's no. I don't even know what you call it. I guess it's just that gambler's mentality of the always wanting to win, I guess. I don't know. You see it even when people take racks at 3.5, 4K. You see people take one set of racks, and then they see the creeps in the base, and people will be coming up in the fountain for the enemy team, and then they'll just go and start attacking the tower and trying to take another set of racks. And it's like, you gotta leave sometime. I'm very guilty of this mindset myself, and it's almost like, you're right about not wanting the roll to stop. You're very right about that, but it's just like you don't want to be told when you're overstepping.
Well, but the game, I think what people don't think about in those moments, especially in solo queue, is that, the way the map is designed is it's supposed to be harder the closer into the center of the team's base you get.
It's kind of the point of the game.
Yeah, like, so the strength you have to take a tier 1 tower, is not frequently enough to take the tier 2 tower. And if you expend resources immediately, and mana and health being the primary resources I'm talking about here, if you expend those resources taking the tier 1, when the other team comes back up and you're pushing the tier 2, you're not going to have... They're going to have a drastic advantage. They're closer, the tower is stronger, you are weaker, you have no mana, your spells are on cooldown, your big ults are probably down. There's not a consideration for, okay, we took the objective, now we go back. We plan to take objectives. We don't just we don't take objectives until we hit the brick wall, until we slam into it and we're forced to go back.
And the only way we'll be returning is in coffins or through the ethereal spirit realm.
Reminds me of that Futurama quote where Zap Brannigan says, that he figured out the killbots, the way to defeat the killbots. He just threw they have a kill limit, so he just threw wave after wave of his own men at them until they hit their kill limits and switched off.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
What it
2K
like.
through, 3K or whatever. But I mean, there are exceptions. Definitely exceptions to you'll meet people that kind of have some sense of team-oriented play, and it gets better, guys.
It gets better.
What do you have to say, Faf?
Not a whole lot. Just be willing to mute people and just try to play with the team concept, and especially when you're playing with your friends, like make sure you pre-communicate, because I get most mad because my expectations are higher when. Like, we end up with 4 supports in a 5-stack, or we end up with the 4 carries, and it's like, well, I have this for my all hero, I have for this for my all hero, and nobody wants to budge, so you end up with things that don't really work together. And then, then people get annoyed at, the other thing. Like, I ran into this with a guildie, and he wanted to play his 10 hero. He's like, I'm going to play this, and we were in a 2-stack. Well, the team ended up didn't make any sense. We had, everyone was a core, and he was mad at them and he kind of snappy with them, and I'm like, well, why are you mad at them? You did the same thing. You were never going to change your pick.
Yeah.
And it's just like you gotta
you gotta be willing to give a little.
The egocentrism is very interesting in Dota because I don't know, we all have those experiences in our respective positions and other positions where we feel like we've done better, I guess, than maybe the competition or the people, our cohorts who we play with. But it's just not the case statistically. You know what I mean? Like, you might have more, slightly higher GPM over the past 20 games or whatever, lifetime, whatever, on your chart thing. But that doesn't mean that you are always better suited for a position. It doesn't mean you're always better suited on a hero, and it doesn't mean in that specific game you're always going to do better. So, like you just said, Cyphus, like just the give, giving a little bit, being able to come to an amiable conclusion in your draft and in your game and in your expectations. They're all very, very important.
Well, something you've brought up before, or that we've talked about, and this is how I've always viewed it, is when I'm playing either solo or party queue, I take it more seriously than I do normal. Like, I feel like the place for, or where it should be, the place for the I'm picking a core no matter fucking what mentality is in a normal pub match.
Yeah.
When you're getting into MMR points, as arbitrary as they are, as meaningless as they are, it's supposed to be your representation of, hey, all right, this is me taking the game just a step more seriously. And the next step being, hey, I'm going to play in a league, and that's the next step of seriousness. If you're going to play, when I'm playing in solo, I have lost just as many games playing core and insisting on playing core, and even if I first pick a core, and having the rest of the team pick cores right after me, I've lost a lot of those games, even being the highest GPM and XPM in the game. Those games are possible to lose. It flat out doesn't matter. Or it wind up being on the lower end of the GPM and XPM, despite feeling like I was a better player or I was the better core in the match, just because everybody else gets out farmed or everybody else is getting fed by a fellow teammate who maybe isn't doing as well. Those games get lost when the team might have been better served by having that support, by having I had a game where nobody picked a mid. It almost never happens. Almost never, ever happens. And I played Dazzle. I was playing Dazzle I'm almost positive it was. Anyway, I'm like, all right, I'm going to support. All right, I'm going to support because we already locked 3 cores. All right, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this. And the last guy locks a jungler. And we already had somebody who wanted to be a jungler, so there's argument about who's going into the jungle. They end up taking 2 of the cores off lane. They end up sending a solo PA, and then the guy who last picked his jungler, I think a lifestealer, runs into the jungle, and I go, dude, who's midding? And he goes, I guess you.
It's your day to shine.
And it's like, all right, Dazzle mid.
Man, can you push the towers with weave, though? There you go.
And it was all right for about 3 levels. And then it became very
And then the other
difficult.
enemy team was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Well, I wasn't prepped to go mid, that's for sure, after buying
Yeah.
Courier and Wards.
See, that's the biggest problem. Dazzle mid can actually really work if matchup wise, but you gotta be ready. You have to have like Null Talisman, and you gotta just keep all your gold for yourself because you need to prop up your base damage and be ready to be greedy. That losing out the 400 gold to buy all the support stuff is just a killer.
It was brutal.
That's
It
brutal.
wasn't much fun. But yeah,
Plus,
I mean,
you have
so
to be
you
used to it. You really have to be used to it.
yeah. Well, you got to be, I guess, and just to highlight the point, like, yeah, you got to be flexible. You've got to be willing to you've got to adapt. Like, we were much better served by that guy letting our previous jungle pick take the jungle, send a solo off lane, send a dual safe lane, and grab a mid. I mean, Jesus Christ, you're playing. Like, how often do you get the opportunity where everybody says, "No, you, please take the mid lane"? That never happens. Never happens in a pub. It's always mid or feed.
Yeah. That's a very interesting story. I haven't heard that one.
Anyway,
But I feel like we've kind of gone over what I wanted to. I think expectations can kind of be a big point to hit on again here. And that's that when you go into a solo game, you shouldn't expect that team coordination to the level of your 5-stack that you play in a league with. But you also shouldn't go into the game with the bitterness of like the world having let you down already.
oh yeah,
Because that can kind of pollute the atmosphere and it can kind of make it not a good environment to play in. I do agree, and I mean I said it early on in the cast, I think, and maybe even before, that like if you go into ranked, you should probably be willing to try
yeah.
to make everything work and try to have an environment that's going to be conducive to competitive play. But lots of different things happen in Dota, and I think in the time that we get to see,
And people have completely different ideas about it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's just life. That's the nature of the Dota 2 beast. You have no idea who you're going to get partied up with.
I was hearing Purge talk about Dota 1, and he said, you guys, like, and he was doing kind of like the old man thing, and he was like, you guys have no idea how good you have it. We didn't have recommended builds or anything like that. Like, you would see people build the most ridiculous shit in Dota 1, and just, they never knew anything else, so you couldn't really fault them. You can't say, don't build Skull Basher on whatever hero, Dazzle or something.
Yeah.
I guess that's a ridiculous enough concept, but because they didn't know, and people didn't go and look up guides and stuff, and they didn't do that, at least not at the pub level, and there wasn't any MMR system, so you get matched with whoever the fuck at certain points, and you'd be matched with whatever, like, the lowest possible skill level, and he said it was infuriating for someone who called themselves a tryhard. So, I guess we have it a little bit better. You at least get matched with people who are as stupid as you.
Yeah, just as dumb as I am.
Yeah, there you go. And I guess, like, just keep your heads up, tryhards. Keep your chin up, and you'll pull through. I wanted to thank my co-host for coming on, saving my ass at the last minute. Cyphus and Faf, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, do you mind if so we're going to be doing some more, like...
My show, my rules.
Minor format changes
Yeah.
on .p coming
Yeah, go
up.
ahead and plug them away. Plug all your stuff, guys.
Some minor changes coming up you might see for the Wednesday and Friday show, and I got to talk to Ursi about what he wants to do for Thursday, but you're probably going to see a couple of .p classics just while we try to figure out I think we're going to be scaling back content a little bit. We've been doing the 5 days a week, and I like the Tuesday show, love the Thursday show. We enjoy doing the Monday show. Wednesday and Friday were additions that maybe we weren't fully prepared for. But I think, so we're trying to, and it seems like they aren't as popular of days. Like maybe we need to be focusing our efforts elsewhere and could be providing better content if we scaled back a little bit. So we're looking at some options there. No big changes coming necessarily this week right away. But so you may see some .p classic episodes while we coordinate what we're doing and do a little revamp on a couple
I will
of
say
items.
it right here. I think it would be great to have the Dota content be the central content, but also do as kind of special edition type shows. Like, you have Fallout 4 coming out. Do an hour or 2 or 3 or whatever of a small series on Fallout 4.
Well, and that was kind of
Or
like
something
our
like that.
initial thought with
Yeah.
the restructure.
And then you guys got bolted down into doing it constantly.
Yeah.
But you don't need to,
No, yeah, and I don't think so either. And I think we have some really good staples in this show and Tryhard Tuesdays in the Theory Craft or Theory Crafting Thursdays. I love both of those shows. I like the Monday show. I feel like we get into slightly more generalized topics there. But yeah, I want to be able to delve into other games. That was always the idea, but we keep getting sucked back into Dota 2 right when I thought I was out.
Michael Corleone.
Yeah. Just when I thought I was out.
They suck me back in.
So like an Enigma black hole.
Yeah, there you go. But
we're
we're looking forward to the changes. Whatever happens, it's gonna be the same content you've all known and loved. We're just we're kind of looking at where we're gonna kind of be positioning the rest of the content, the peripheral content,
and just the revamping the schedule. It's intensive doing 5 days a week. It turns out.
Yeah, really intensive. I can imagine.
So we're gonna at least cut a show.
I do 1 day a week, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. So anyway,
you have anything else to add?
Nah. Follow me on Twitter. I never plug mine.
Yeah.
At @p_Cyphus. CYPHUS.
And Faf, what about you? Where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter too. I'm usually commenting on shows at ChrisF1116, also .pfafnir in Dota or in the .p chat channel. You can usually find me. I try to say hi whenever I pop on, unless I really have to do something. So, and yeah, thanks for making all the shows, and I completely understand doing 5 is a lot. So
yeah, we just kind of, I don't know, old Roland's hitting the workforce here soon, and so we're gonna be tight on schedule. It's already tight as it is with my work schedule and his school schedule, which he's nearing completion. But we kind of got to position it properly so that so he doesn't like fail or something.
Yeah, and he's just so technically involved with every other show, let alone being a host. It's just a bit much, but I think we're kind of looking to partition things and
I just want to segment it a little better, and I like that we've built up the shows like Tryhard Tuesday and Theorycraft Thursday. These we're expanding out within the community. It's always been fun to focus on the community, so having the community help generate shows is maybe the most rewarding part of this whole process. So
yeah, yes indeed. Well, you can also find me at .p_Wazoo. Check us out at .p. Is it underscore show or just
underscore show? Yeah,
at .p_show. Check out the subreddit. Defense of the Patients, Defense of the Patients. It's really awesome. I mean, it's cool to go in there and see everything. It's all the information's cataloged, everything new that's happening. There's discussion on everything. Some old faces like Easy are in there, pretty active. So it's cool to see everybody there and kind of the history of it. And I do not have anything else. Check out our 82L games. We were talking about it. It's good kind of
those are
supplementary.
On the YouTube channel.
Yeah, they're on the YouTube channel. You can find them through the subreddit as well, and that's good supplementary content to kind of what we were talking about.
.ptv1.
Yeah.
Is YouTube.
So, that's all we have for you this week. We will see y'all next week. Stay hard and stay classy, guys. We'll see you next week.